Bruchim Abayim, welcome everyone to a special edition of All Parsha. Parshas Chayei Sarah, the Ben La'ashri, the Tzaddik of Ranana, Rabbi Yitzchak HaKohen Huberman, on Parshas Chayei Sarah. Vayiyu Chayei Sarah. The Medrash Rabbah famously comments, Parsha Nunches Ois Gimel, that Rabbi Akiva was sitting and he was darshaning, and his Talmidim, they were falling asleep. Well, sound familiar? The more things change, the more they stay the same. And Rabbi Akiva whips out of his pocket his most interesting story. He said, why was Esther Zoiche to rule over 127 Medinos in the merit of the 127 righteous years of Sarah Imenu? The Tzaddik Ranana explains this medrash in the following historical context. We know, why do people fall asleep in the middle of the day? They're run down, they're tired, very often down, depressed, morose. They don't have a positive, optimistic outlook. And the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, in the aftermath of the Churban, with tsaros becoming increasingly more intense, they were nisya'ish min achayim. They were morose. They had given up hope. They did not have a positive outlook toward their future. And Rabbi Akiva wanted to mechazek them. And he said, why was Esther Zoicha to rule over 127 Medinos? In the merit of the 127 righteous years of Esther. And the Tzaddik Ranana says, I understand the end of Sarah's life, where she acted righteously and she was involved in the observance of mitzvahs and masim tovim. But when Sarah was a little child, she didn't do anything. What kind of zechus was it for Sarah that year 1, year 2, year 3, what exactly was Sarah doing? Sarah was running a chesed campaign at a year and a half. So the pshat is that in a person's older years, if they act properly, they could redeem and correct and give fulfillment to one's entire life. Therefore, Rabbi Akiva tells his Talmidim, you lived through the Churban. The beginning of your life, it was mournful. It was not off to a good start. But if you're mechazik from here on, if you give it your all to learn Torah, to follow my Shiur, to build yourself up, then through the good deeds that you do from now, you will give fulfillment not only to your later years, but to the earlier years even that you lived through the Churban. This was the chizuk that Rabbi Akiva was offering his Talmidim. Interestingly, the Ben La'ashri in the second offering, we're going to try to share 10 offerings today. Vayiyu Chayei Sarah. The Rashi Tevos Vayiyu Chayei Sarah is 74. You say, how's that possible? Sarah alone is a sin, 300. Well, there's a very interesting concept that the sin semalis, as it's called, can be reckoned as 60. This is alluded to in Tosfos and Zvachim. The Medrash says that when the woman came to the scene, Vayizgar basar tachtena, where we have the letter sin, the letter sin represents samach, the Satan. In this case, the letter samach means vayizgar basar tachtena. The samach of vayizgar is reckoned like a sin. So a sin could be reckoned like a samach. So the Rashi Tevos Vayiyu Chayei Sarah are 74. 74 is what is called the Oisios HaKoidmais, the letters before the letters Elokim. Aleph Lamed Hey, Yud Mem, Elokim. The letters before that are Aleph, Chaf, Daled, Tes Mem. 86 to 74. That is what is called Hamtakas Hadinim, sweetening the Midas Hadin. And in fact, Sarah corrected and was masakin the lifetime of Chava. And therefore, Vayiyu Chayei Sarah, Rashi Tevos 74, referring to the Hamtakas Hadinim, the sweetening of Midas Hadin. Vayiyu Chayei Sarah. The word Vayiyu could be read the same forward and backward, being merames to the teaching tzaddikim, even in their death, they're considered alive. Vayiyu, whether from beginning to end or end to beginning, both when she came into the world and when she left, she was equally alive, because tzaddikim, even b'misasam, are called chayim. Now, offering number 4, Rashi says that why the juxtaposition of the Akedah to the death of Sarah? When Sarah heard about the Akedah and she realized Kimat Shaloi Nishchat, that Yitzchak typically this is understood when she heard that Yitzchak was almost shechted, she was astonished, she was shocked to death. However, the literal reading of Rashi is V'kamat shaloi nishchat, when she realized he wasn't shechted. And the Mefarshim say that what this means is that Sarah didn't die because she thought Yitzchak was shechted, but she died because she was sorry that she thought he was not, and she considered it her fault. It was the lack of zechusim that her son was not zoicha to be a carbon and a reach nichayach. Now, what avera could Sarah have done that she wasn't zoicha that he should be a carbon? The answer is because she laughed. Because she laughed. That's why she was punished that Yitzchak was not a carbon. In fact, Vayiyu Chayei Sarah Me'ar Shana Ve'esrim Roshei Tevois V'chash Shemai. She was concerned because of his name. When she realized his name was Yitzchak, and he was called Yitzchak because of the laughter, and she realized that perhaps because of her laughter, he wasn't Zoicha to be a carbon, that is why Sarah Imenu expired. Okay, we go to the next offering. Vayiyu Chayei Sarah Meya. Rashi Tevois, Gematria 354, Deshen, ashes. When she heard that her son was brought as an oila, and he practically became Deshen, ashes, as a carbon oila is entirely burnt, her neshama flew from her body, and that's how she died. Leka midi deloy ramizi ba'iraisa. Now, offering number 6. Vayiyu Chayei Sarah Me'ar Shana Ve'esrim Shana V'Shava Shana Shnei Chayei Sarah. Rashi says Kulan Shavim L'Torah. They're taiva. They're all equally good. And the Farshim are matmiya. What exactly is Rashi adding? They're all equally good. And says the Ben La'ashri, we could explain based on the Chida. The word Vayiyu is Gematria 37. That the real life of Sarah Imenu was for 37 years, from age 90 until 127, because so long as she didn't have children, Misha Ein Lo Banim is Chashav Kamei. So her real life was for 37 years. Vayiyu, Gematria 37, Chayei Sarah. However, Rashi cannot accept that fully, because even though someone who doesn't have children is not considered alive, but Iker Toldoiseyim Shel Tzadikim are mitzvahs and masam tovim, and therefore Sarah Imenu certainly was considered alive for her whole career. And therefore Rashi adds, Shnei Chayei Sarah, Kulan Shavim L'Torah, Taiva. All 127 years are reckoned for goodness, for blessing, for happiness, for Sarah Imenu, both when she had physical progeny and the spiritual progeny. Now, again, going back to the idea that Sarah Imenu died because of the report of the Akedah that the Satan gave to her, and according to the Medrash Tanchuma and according to Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, the Satan, the Samach Mem, told Sarah about this report and frightened her. And the question is, why is the Satan so troubled with Sarah? Why is he after Sarah? What did Sarah ever do to him that he's trying to get at her? And the Ben Lashri says maybe because Sarah was the Gilgal of Chava and the Tikkun of Chava, and the Nachash was cursed, Ve'eva Ashis, between him and her. Therefore, he's after her because Sarah is Chava. In fact, you could say there a remez that these words, Vatam Chevron, is Gematria with the word itself, Eva Shaloi Bikesh. He sought out his hatred, Tmuras Ariras Alekim, in exchange for God's curse. Now, offering number 8, the Ben La'ashri says, while Rabbeinu B'Chayei says a number of interpretations of Kiryas Arba, why it's called Kiryas Arba, in his mind, that we know that a person's kever is considered daled al daled, and therefore, since this city was designated for Beis HaKvaros, it's called Kiryas Arba, the city of 4, the city where people lay in their designated space of daled al daled. Offering number 9. Vayavai Avram lispaid l'Sara v'livkoisa. Avram came to eulogize Sarah and to cry for her. It should say Vayavai Avraham lispaid v'livkois Sarah. Or lispaid v'livkois l'Sara. Why lispaid l'Sara v'livkoisa? Why interpose between Sarah? Why interpose between lispaid and livkoisa with the word l'Sara? Says Ben Lashri, we know the chaf on the word livkoisa is small, so it could also be read ulavita. And this is a remez that at the time of Sarah's hesped, another person died, namely Abraham's daughter. What was her name? Bakoil. Vayavai Abraham lispaid l'Sara to Sarah ulabita, and to Sarah's daughter as well. And final offering. Vayakam Avraham eyal pnei mesai. Avram got up from upon the face of his dead. This could be explained similar to what Rashi says on Vayakam Sedei Ephraim. The field of Ephraim got up. Rashi comments, the field of Ephraim had an elevation to Kuma Haisalai, that it left the possession of a simpleton and it entered the possession of a melech. So too here. It is known, that which the Mefarshim write in the Kavanah of Rashi, that Sarah Imenu, she died not because she thought Yitzchak was shechted, but because she thought maybe she wasn't zoicha that her son should be a carbon. And through this tsar, she died. This righteousness of Sarah illuminated her face even after she died. And when Avraham looks upon her face, he sees what a righteous woman. She indicted herself that the reason why Yitzchak was not Zoicha to be a carbon was because of her sin. And Avraham said, you know what? Maybe it's because of my sin. And Avraham did a tshuva sholema inspired by the example of Sarah. So Vayakam Avraham had a tekuma haisalai. Why? Me'al pnei mesai, looking at the face of Sarah Imenu, realizing her tzidkos, that she died in sorrow because she thought it was because of her that Yitzchak was not Zoicha to be on the Akedah. So these are 10 amazing thoughts of the Ben La'ashri on Parshas Chayei Sarah. The Tzaddik Ranana promises anyone who says over his Divrei Torah in his name, he will pray for you, bail you out of any trouble in Olam Hazeh and in Olam Haba. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless us all with Rak Ach Toiv Lanu LiYisrael Ad Bias Gal Tzedek. Wishing everyone a wonderful rest of the week, and Shabbos Mevarchim Kislev Haba Aleinu L'Taiva.